Okay. I'm going to try to do a video without any planning, which is not normally what I do. I normally plan everything in advance because I really, really like to plan things. But I think this would be good practice to maybe not organize everything and script everything as much as I usually do. So, welcome to the Stitchery, where I have no plan. Okay, I have a little bit of a plan. Obviously, I have a plan. I wouldn't just be here for no reason. So, recently I started macrameing. Macrameing. And I really, really liked it. A lot more than I expected to. So, I've been not really looking for more ideas, just having more ideas for more macrame projects, more reasons to macrame. And the first thing that I thought of was, why not combine this lovely new art form that I have gained here with the one I already have, which is embroidery. Actually, I kind of thought of this before I even started doing macrame. But a lot of macrame kind of looks like a canvas. It can get pretty tightly knotted together and be a nice background. And so I was like, why not add some color to that? Use that as a canvas and try embroidering or sewing on top of it. So that is what I'm going to try today, right here. Possibly tomorrow, because schedules. And yeah, okay, I did pre-plan a little bit, obviously. There has to be some amount of pre-planning, namely because I had to buy myself some cord. As usual, I haven't tried this before, and I don't know if it's gonna work. But that kind of is the norm now on this channel. So I guess that's not that surprising. I mean, logically it should work. It makes sense in my head. Okay, so basically my plan is to do like a heart shape out of square knots on sort of a long piece that's got the fringe on the bottom, stick on the top. Easy peasy. And then I'm gonna sew over the heart itself. So basically all I need to figure out is how big I'm gonna make this, how many cords it's gonna take, how many square knots in the heart. So a square knot is made up of 4 cords typically. And then you pull 2 of those cords from this one to the next one and add 2 more cords and you get sort of an offset square knot. So every square knot you're joining 2 new cords. The thing with macrame is you have to start from the top and work your way down. So if you're making a heart, the first thing you have to do is the 2 peaks of the heart. Then you would work your way down like so until you meet in the middle. So you kind of have to know in advance what you're going to do, or it's just not going to turn out right. So my concern is that if I start with 1 square knot at the top, it's going to get too triangular and too peaky on top. It might be better to have 2 or even 3 on top so you get more of a round look. And again, this is probably something I could very easily look up, like even just a picture. Macrame hearts are very, very common, but I learn best by figuring things out on my own. So that is what I'm gonna do. So in very slight form, this is basically what it is. I think I'm gonna start with just the 3 on top. I don't know, maybe just the 2. But if this right here is the widest part of my heart, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 X's, and I have 4 cords being used for each one, that means I need 56 cords, which of course is 28 actual cords. However, I don't think I want 14 across here. I think I want to go bigger, and I think I actually want to do 20 X's across, which means I would need 40 cords, and I think that's already getting really, really big. So what I'm going to do is grab a stick that's about the size that I'm wanting and start putting cords on it and see how big 40 chords is. This one should work. Sniffed, licked, and approved by the puppy. Okay, I ended up with 26 chords across this one, doubled of course, which means at its widest part, my heart can have 13 square knots in it. So I'm gonna map out the size and how many knots and all of that based on that row, which means drawing a buttload more exits. And it looks like I'll need to start 10 chords in from each side in order to make these top 2 knots. And I do want some space between the heart and the branch, so I'll just make the first square knots even with each other, kind of a few inches down. I'm still going back and forth between having 1 knot or 2 knots or 3 knots on the peaks of the heart. So I'm going to start with a single knotted peak and then just see how it looks after a few rows, and then I'm going to decide. Yeah, I'm not loving this. And as I suspected, I like the rounder version a lot better. So I'll add to the other side and then keep knotting until I have my full heart. Okay, so my heart is done. I ended up adding an extra row to the bottom here and here, which it also made it longer right here, but basically that gave me more size, more background to put the embroidery in. Which basically my idea is to do some simple lettering on it. I think I want to do like with love across the front of it. The problem here is that I can't draw a pattern onto this really in any way, so I'm gonna have to be freehanding it, which is not really one of my skills. But my thought is that I can trace this heart onto paper and then actually grid it out by putting like a little dot in each one of these holes. That way I can create a grid to draw my lettering onto and guide me as I'm sewing. So now I just have to decide where my with love is going to be, and then when I'm sewing it, I can use these little dots as a sort of map to figure out where to sew it. I'd kind of like to make this L, this was my favorite part of cursive, was cursive L's, but I don't really want to make the rest of it cursive, so I don't know if that would look right. Okay, that'll work. I'm gonna use cotton pearl in white, just to give it some thickness, and a big old tapestry needle. Actually, cotton pearl already feels really thin in comparison to the size of this. So I'm gonna double it over. Actually, I'm gonna double it over so that I can do the no knot on the back. So I'm gonna thread my needle with the 2 ends of the thread, and then when I go through the cord, I can just draw the needle through the loop at the end of that thread and secure it on the back without having to tie an actual knot. I do want to kind of anchor these, so even though I mapped it according to the holes, I actually want to go through the cord every single time. So then I dropped this like 1, 2, 3, 4 holes down. 1, 2, 3, 4, but also 1 over, so there-ish. So there's the start. I don't want to be able to see the cord through any of the holes, so when I'm jumping to a new letter, that means I kind of need to bring the cord through stuff in the back so that it winds around rather than just going straight there, if that makes sense. Yeah, so like already you can see that, so that's no good. Round 2, doing it again. It's still a little visible, but I'll let it fly. So for the dot of the eye, I want to do a French knot. We'll see how that goes. Actually, that went really well. Now I want to start the eye directly below the French knot, but I can't let the cord show through this hole right here, so I'm gonna have to do some more disappearing drop stitches around the back. So I've run out of cord, and I'm just gonna tie it off by just tying the 2 cords together on the back, making a little knot here that won't slide back through, and then just for a little extra security, I'm gonna pull the ends through some of the cord back here with a crochet hook. Here's where we ended with this, and I don't love it. Namely because it looks very chicken scratchy, like someone scrawled a murder note, a loving murder note, but still. I don't love the doubled up cord here. It doesn't look right to me, and maybe that's just because of the long, straight, very scrawly stitches that I did. But yeah, in general, not liking it. I'm thinking maybe I do bring in that cursive L. In fact, I could do the entire thing in cursive, maybe just drop it down to love across the center here. And then I think maybe I'll still double the cord, but I'll do shorter stitches and do like a split stitch, because I think doing a split stitch with shorter stitches will make the curves easier, and it'll make the doubled up cord look better and give some more weight to the whole thing. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna take all this out. So round 2 is definitely going to take some way smaller stitches if I want to get around the small curves like this right here. Don't know if that'll happen, so we'll see. All right, I started over and tried a few things. I mean, really, I just tried the one thing and it worked. It was much easier to sew on the desk instead of with it hanging. I was able to get much better grips on stuff, and I ended up doing a single cord instead of doubling it up, but still doing like a split stitch and a stem stitch. I mean, in some places I just straight up tacked it down, kind of doing whatever necessary to get it where I wanted it to be. I still kind of ran into trouble trying to go over the gaps, which is why this is a little bit of a lumpy line instead of being just nice and smooth. But I think once I fill it with the rest of the letters, it'll be good. And those are clearly going to be a little more difficult to sew just because the curves are much tighter, so the spacing will be interesting, but I'm going to give it a go. Okay, so sewing lettering onto macrame, it turned out to be a little harder than expected. I think what would be easier is doing embroidery style stitches, but with cord that's like the same size as this cord itself. So then you're using the holes in the macrame like you would use the holes in Aida when doing cross stitch. Like all of your stitches would come through those holes in both directions. Whereas when I had a piece with holes of this size and I'm using cotton pearl thread, it's such a difference of size that I couldn't just come up and down through the existing holes, or there would have been giant gaps. It would have looked really weird. So then I was having to come up through the actual cord to try to connect these stitches and make a smooth line of lettering. So it looks a little off even though the E and the side of the L are technically the same distance from each other. Because of this sort of larger gap up in the top, it sort of seems like the whole thing needs to move up. But generally, I'm pretty okay with this, so I'm just gonna finish it off by putting a row of horizontal clove hitches here and then trim up the fringe. Okay, so this is my first Macrame project. I feel like there has to be a better name combo. That one doesn't really roll off the tongue. Give me name suggestions. What is macrame and embroidery smashed together? Embroidery. I feel like it needs that ack sound in it though. Macrame. Embroidermac. Macroidery. Brume? Embroime? Okay, I lied. Macbroidery might be the best choice.